So we just got some horrible news in regards to Tesla stock that I absolutely want to go ahead and parse through. This way we could kind of break down what is taking place with the price action for Tesla, as it's recently been a bit chaotic. Now, if you guys are new to the channel, just a few months ago when Tesla was at its euphoric highs around the 480s, I mentioned how Tesla stock was overvalued from a fundamental perspective. But of course, no one wants to listen to that when a stock is just going straight up to the moon. But long and behold, we ended up seeing Tesla stock fall down a tremendous amount, and I kept making a series of videos saying that Tesla stock was going to fall lower and fall lower and fall lower, and eventually we ended up falling down to, at one point we were around $216. Now, after that period, we ended up seeing a lot of momentum with Tesla stock recently, and trust me, you guys would not believe me when I said the amount of messages I got from people saying, Justin, you're wrong, look at Tesla stock, it just did 20% going up, it's going to recover. And one thing I want to go ahead and highlight is just because it had this momentum, it doesn't mean that it's going to recover overnight. Now, one thing you have to understand is that we fell down a significant amount, and even though we bounced up hard, that doesn't mean much, especially since we haven't broken through some very serious psychological levels. Now, one thing that a lot of people tend to kind of confuse is the fact that if a stock, for example, were to fall 50%, right? Just think about this. If a stock were to fall 50% down, you actually need it to go up 100% just so I could recover and break even. Now, I know some people are going to say, wait a minute, Justin, that doesn't make sense. It's not symmetrical. But it isn't, and you're right, it's not symmetrical, right? A 50% drop needs a 100% return to recover because the percentage is calculated based on the new lower value, not the original. So we'll try to make this very easy, right? Let's say you have $100 and you lose it by 50%. That's half, right? You're at $50. Now to go from $50 to $100, you actually need to double it, which is a 100% gain. So you fall down 50, you need to climb up 100 just to get back up to that 50, right? It's kind of confusing because, again, it's not symmetrical, but that's just the way it works. And so we started seeing this momentum with Tesla stock, but we ended up not even crossing the exponential 200-day moving average, and now we're starting to see things fall down. Now, we did get some new catalysts that could be, supporting the reason why we're starting to see this momentum slow down, right? It just halted basically. And one of the things I want to highlight is basically the news that we got of tariffs, right? We've been hearing tariffs being bounced all around. One day it is going to happen, one day it's not, then it's delayed, right? It's been a chaotic mess, but we recently had the news that all of US automakers, right, are going to be having tariffs implemented, 25% tariffs, import tariffs from Canada and Mexico, right? Now, I've made several videos talking about how tariffs impact companies. I'm not going to delve into that in this video because you could just Google that and it'd be redundant to say it again. But this also impacts Tesla. Now, I know some people are going to say, but Justin, Tesla produces and they manufacture the car in America. The cars that they sell in America, they manufacture in America. That is true. But a lot of their parts are actually imported from regions in Canada and Mexico. So this tariff talk is kind of not good news for Tesla. It'll be, it's worse for some of the other automakers. It's still bad news for Tesla. But we also have to understand that Tesla's kind of in the crosshair of this kind of whole political situation, right? For example, Canada, right, their government announced that it has frozen the payment of rebates on Tesla vehicles, which will make them more expensive, right? We had this quote that Canada has frozen all rebate payments for Tesla, opened a new tab, and banned the electric maker from future EV rebate programs. So Tesla, right, because of Elon Musk getting more involved in politics, has been in the crosshair, right? Of course, I talked about how people are vandalizing Teslas, right? We're seeing that throughout the country. We talked about how the sentiment was horrible, right? Not seeing, right? Hopefully, there's no more recent events of vandalisms, right? But in the past few weeks, we've saw people, blowing up Tesla vehicles, vandalizing them, destroying charging stations, setting them on fire, right? We had arsons. And I always been kind of preaching that despite, your hatred towards Tesla, right? Please do not do anything silly and destroy property, right? I don't, I'm completely against that, right? I think everyone's entitled to their own, political opinions. Maybe you hate Elon, maybe you love him, but please do not destroy property, especially because right now they're going hard. They are laying the hammers on those people, right? They're talking about 20 years, right? And calling it domestic terrorism. So definitely don't do that, right? But besides the point, what I'm trying to say is that the sentiment for Tesla has been deteriorating, right? Just because of the political stance from Elon Musk. We've seen how sales, right, deliveries have been falling, right? We get an update on a fundamental perspective from Tesla on April 2nd. So put that in your calendar. That's going to be a very big day for Tesla. It's also a big day because that's when we have the new supposed tariffs for automakers, imports, right, coming to fruition. So definitely a huge day, April 2nd. So make sure to mark that on your calendar. But a lot's going on. So one of the things I mentioned within the Push a Profit private group, right? For those who are not familiar, I have a private group where every single day we talk about what's going on in the markets. And one of the things I mentioned that I was kind of skeptical about, right, was what we saw with price action on the S&P 500. Now you have to understand that the S&P 500 is it's weighted with the mega cap tech names, right? So think about Meta, Microsoft, Amazon, Tesla, right? You name it, Nvidia. Those have a huge weighting. And so one of the things that was pretty interesting is we saw the S&P 500 pretty much enter into a correctional period. We started moving up. And then we had this big day moving up, crossing the exponential 200-day moving average, which was good news. But one thing that we noticed is that volume we crossed it, and then volume started falling down. And so one way that I like to kind of have everyone think about volume, and this is exactly how I explained it for those within the Push and Profit private group, is that volume is a voting machine, right? I'm trying to simplify it, right? Volume validates price by confirming how many traders are voting for a given price. And so after we crossed the 200-day moving average, we saw volume kind of start to dip down here. And that means that people are not voting or really confirming that this is a good price, that this upwards movement isn't something that there's a lot of participation with, right? One of the tenets from the Dow theory is that volume confirms price, right? And so, again, the simplest way to think of it is this is a voting machine, right? The higher it is, the more participation, the more voting that this is the price people believe is the right price. And as it kind of hit this recent upward movement, we started to see volume fall downwards. And so there's kind of this voting going on that maybe this isn't the right price, and then we ended up falling down, kind of hovering above the 200-day moving average. So we'll go ahead and continue to monitor that for the S&P 500. But let's go ahead and go back to Tesla, right? Because of course this is a video about Tesla, and the reason I say that is because I was a bit skeptical, right? Even the market's skeptical of this momentum upwards, right? We saw it with the S&P 500. Volume fell down. Now, what we actually see with Tesla is something pretty interesting, right? Because we actually see Tesla had high volume going up, and then we fell down, and even falling down, we had this high volume. So what does that mean? Well, that simply means that there's kind of this psychological battle zone, right? Which is why I mapped this out as an area of support. Whenever you have an area, not support, resistance, right? Because this was previous resistance in the past, and it's held itself up pretty well. We see that in the past it used to be kind of like an area of support, and so with the principles of polarity, it's going to show itself as an area of resistance. And then once we broke above it, it was acting as support, and we broke below it now, right? Again, it's just a psychological area, and we have this kind of high volume signaling that both the sellers and the buyers are actively participating. We just can't get that agreement of where price should be, and that's why we're seeing these big swings up, and now we're seeing these big swings downs, and so that's currently where we are. Now, fundamentally, I still think that Tesla is still looking at a lot of pain. We've talked about how Europe has kind of had their sales declined massively. We'll get the real picture fundamentally on April 2nd. But, for the people that were sending me the messages of, oh, look, Tesla's going up, it's going back to the moon, keep in mind this could be a dead cat bounce, right? And I hate the name dead cat bounce as someone that owns 2 cats, right? Missy and Mochi. I hate the name dead cat bounce, but that's just a technical name in the market, right? When something gets thrown down so hard, it's gonna have a bounce, right? It's kind of the idea, right? The whole name is just, if you had a dead cat and you threw it as hard as you can on the floor, its lifeless body would do a small bounce, right? Again, very graphic, horrible, right? But nonetheless, we're not sissies here, right? That's just a technical term. But this could very well be a dead cat bounce. And so we'll have to get an update on the fundamental picture and also listen to see if there's any catalyst going forward, because we all know that tariffs have been kind of this back and forth, art of the deal, or maybe just insanity going on, right? We'll eventually figure out what's going on, but it's been a big pendulum swinging from yes, it's happening, no, it's not happening, it's getting delayed. So we'll have to continue monitoring what's going on, but fundamentally I think that there's still a bit more pain for Tesla. Of course, I don't have a crystal ball. Now, real quick, if you're wanting to learn how to analyze a company like a pro, then make sure to check out the Financial Modeling and Valuation Analyst Certificate that's offered by the Corporate Finance Institute, as it can literally take you from having no clue in what to do in Excel to becoming an expert at financial modeling, since it's going to go through building financial models from scratch, valuing companies and analyzing financial statements all through a super structured format. Plus, having the FMVA certificate on your resume is going to help you stand out, especially if you're trying to break into a career in finance, as a lot of professionals at firms like Deloitte, Morgan Stanley, and Goldman Sachs have all taken CFI courses. But of course, if you're not trying to break into finance, the knowledge alone is really good if you're just trying to be an independent investor. But with that said, if you're interested, make sure to check out one of the links down below to gain access to all the certificates that you can earn with the Corporate Finance Institute. Now, I just want to give a quick shout out for those of you guys that habitually watch the channel, those of you guys that hit the like button or leave a positive comment. You guys definitely are the reason why I do this. Now, I haven't been able to make content consistently. I've been just getting beaten like a dog with, I think it's allergies. I don't know if you guys could hear it in my voice. The sore throat is just killing me. But for those of you guys that are brand new to the channel, if you guys don't want to miss out on a future upload, make sure to tap that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on a future video. And with that said, before you guys go, make sure to check out this video right over here, and I'll see you guys on that next video. Take care, guys.